Let's Take This Outside with Marianne Iveson, the podcast where she speaks to athletes, outdoor professionals, and scientists about why they connect with nature.
My guest today, Angelo Fulco, was born in Calabria, Italy, and immigrated to Canada as a child growing up here in Ottawa. After long careers in retail finance and real estate, he discovered new passions in retirement: running marathons, writing, and traveling. In 2023, he walked the Camino de Santiago, a journey that inspired his book and documentary, Searching for Serenity, Finding My Way on the Camino de Santiago. We're talking about reinvention, resilience, and the lessons learned when you truly take the time to walk your own path. Please welcome Angelo Fulco. Angelo, welcome to Let's Take This Outside. So nice to chat with you.
Thank you, Marianne, and thank you for having me on your show. I'm really excited about being here.
I always talk about people's backgrounds, and you were born in Italy. Is your background like an Italian? It's like a picture of something. Is it Italian?
I am absolutely Italian, Canadian. I was born in Italy, and my parents and I came to Canada. We immigrated to Canada in 1959. I was just short of my 7th birthday that time. We arrived here 21 in Halifax. I still have fond memories of that. But today,
do you remember? Do you have vivid memories?
I absolutely do. Yeah. I absolutely do. And you know, the funny thing about that, and that's a good question you ask, because my wife and I have gone to Halifax several times. And every time we do go, I make sure to go to Pier 21, which is now a museum. But, you know, walking in, all these memories come back of the night that we arrived in Canada. So it's a beautiful place, beautiful memories there.
And the picture behind you, what is that of?
Oh, that is in Switzerland, actually.
Oh, okay.
A place that my wife Tracy and I visited a few years ago.
Angelo, do you remember where your love of the outdoors and nature and spending time outside began?
I grew up, as I mentioned, as a child, grew up in Italy and in a hilltop town, and I loved being outdoors. I loved running around. Started playing soccer when I was a young boy there, and just the fact that that the hills, the mountains that I grew up with, surrounding us, it was born at that particular time in my life.
Have you been back since?
Several times. I still have family. I have a wonderful aunt who is 95 years old, my Zia Maria, God bless her, and many cousins. And so, yes, we were there about 2 years ago, actually, visited family, and we took a tour of Sicily, which we really loved.
But you've mostly been in Ottawa. Since you moved to Canada, you've mostly been in Ottawa, though, right?
Absolutely. Since 1959, we've lived in Ottawa. I've lived in Ottawa most of my life. Traveled a little bit in my younger days throughout Ontario, but mostly lived in Ottawa, yes.
We're going to talk about your marathon and marathon training and endurance sports and all these things. But I want to know the moment when you first decided to walk the Camino de Santiago. What sparked that decision? Is that a big question? Is that why you're laughing?
That's a wonderful question, and I'm always happy to answer that question because there were a lot of different factors that came into that. When I turned about 62, I'm 73 now. When I turned about 62, I was way out of shape and decided that that's not how I wanted to live the rest of my life. I have amazing kids, beautiful grandkids, and I wanted to be around quite a while for them. And so I started thinking about maybe taking up running. I mean, I've been active all my life, playing sports, football, soccer, all kinds of racket sports, but I had let it go in the last few years. So I started taking some training at the running room here in Ottawa, and started with a 5K, 10K, eventually made it up to a half marathon, and then I did my first full marathon in Toronto, the Toronto Waterfront Marathon at age 66, and completed it in a pretty good time for myself for being the first. I think I completed about 5 hours and 20 minutes or so.
Sounds great. Sounds good.
Hey, I was happy with that.
Yeah. And hey, you completed a marathon. Most people can't say that.
You know, I read something just a little while ago that only 1% of the world's population can actually say they have completed a marathon. That's amazing when you think about it.
Yeah.
So I started doing, races and training. And then I got into hiking. We're blessed here in Ottawa in the sense that we're very close to the Quebec side, which has some amazing trails.
I talk about it all the time on this podcast.
Right?
About Gatineau Park. Yeah.
Right? It's amazing. And so even on the Ontario side, going outside of Ottawa, there's some great trails. And so I started doing that and I found that I really, really enjoyed it. And then I guess around 2011 or 2012, that's when the film was made. I believe it was made in 2011, called The Way. It was a film about the Camino, starring Martin Sheen, and his son Emilio had actually directed. He has a very small part in it, but when I watched this, I just felt a calling to it. And a part of it was because of my religious beliefs, and there were other factors involved in that. So, you know, with the training that I had in running, started hiking, watching the movie, The Way, my religious beliefs, it all came together. And as I say, I just felt a calling to it. I had hoped to start it back in, I believe it was around 2020 when COVID hit. And so that delayed things a little bit. And eventually I made my way to France, which is where the start of my Camino was, in the spring of 2022.
Can you actually tell me more about the Camino for people who don't know much about it? Because honestly, like, other than like what I've read and like in your book and whatever, I don't know much about it.
So the Camino de Santiago started as a pilgrimage in Spain in honor of St. James, one of Jesus's apostles. Camino in Spanish simply means walk, and Santiago is Spanish for St. James. As I mentioned, the Camino originally started as a religious pilgrimage, but over the years, and rightfully so, it has become popular with many people from all over the world who walk the Camino for, their own reasons. And some may walk it for spiritual reasons, perhaps seeking a connection with nature, answers to some of life's questions, perhaps seeking a greater sense of purpose. It allows people to disconnect themselves from their daily lives, from their regular life, and perhaps some difficult events they may be going through. And it allows them to clear their heads and reflect and have a better understanding of themselves. Some people walk the Camino simply because they love challenges while experiencing the history, the culture, the diverse and beautiful landscapes of Spain, Portugal, France along the way. The Camino I walked is known as the Camino Français, or the French Way. It is 800 kilometers or 500 miles in distance. Mm-hmm. It begins in a small town at the base of the French Pyrenees Mountains called Saint-Jean-Pied-de-Port, and then ultimately ending in Santiago de Compostela. So I did the full Camino. I did start in Saint-Jean in France and walked 800 kilometers. It took me a total of 35 days. Now, I took only 2 days rest periods. So I took 2 extra days. Every couple of weeks, I took a day off, basically, until I got to Santiago. And once I got there, I stuck around for another 4 days. I just loved the place, It was just awesome. And there's many stories I could tell you about. Oh,
I'll be asking those questions.
Many people that I met. But that's a little bit of the history of Santiago.
I love, how it started. I love how it just attracts people from all over the world. Can I ask, okay, so you're here in Ontario, and you're like, okay, I'm going to do this. I'm like, there's a calling to the Camino. So at what point were you like, okay, I need to train for this physically, mentally? I have to get my stuff together. What am I going to carry? Like, how did you work out the logistics of it? And also, didn't you have your stuff sent? Because you didn't carry everything along the way, right? You had your stuff sent. This is so cool that you can, it's almost like a hut to hut where like your stuff, like you carry your day pack,
Yes,
but you had your stuff sent to the next location, right? So there's kind of like this pressure that like, I got to get there because I got to get my pajamas and my toothbrush and my, right?
you're absolutely right. And
Right.
yeah, and good points because as far as the training, as I mentioned, I felt physically fit to do this. I had no issues with that. The mental part of it, you never know what to expect. Okay. You can be physically fit, but you don't know what to expect. This was my first Camino. And as they say, the Camino holds many surprises. The first day I went up the Pyrenees Mountains over 1,500 meters, got to the top. It was foggy. It was cold. It was windy. It was unbelievable.
What did training for the Camino look like for you physically and mentally?
Well, as I mentioned, the training part was the running. We spent actually that winter, we were in Costa Rica. My wife and I go to Costa Rica for a month or so, and very hilly. It was one particular hill they called Death Hill, and I would not run it. It's impossible to run it, but I would actually walk it up and down every day, and that was great training.
Yeah.
The packing, I think it was the other question you mentioned to me.
Oh, packing and logistics. Yeah.
Yes, yeah. So I started watching videos on the Camino, many videos on what to expect. Packing, I overpacked. I'll admit that. It was the worst decision I ever made in terms of going to the Camino. I had my backpack, but along with me, I also brought a huge brown suitcase, which I knew right away was a huge mistake. In fact, when I got back, I threw that luggage away. I didn't want to see it anymore because it was just such a pain hauling that other stuff around. But the good part of that was that, as you mentioned, I had arranged in advance that, so my travel agent here in Ottawa was the person that actually arranged everything for me. You know, the travel, the transfer of luggage from one town to the other. So I only had to worry about carrying what I needed for that particular day.
And your day pack, yeah.
My day pack. But again, as you mentioned, there was pressure to get to the next destination for sure. Because, if I decided that, hey, I'm tired at kilometer 10, I'm going to just stop here. I couldn't do that. I had to walk my 24 or 25 kilometers for the day. And, I don't know if you and I had talked about my injuries before, but I had several injuries which were very challenging. And
my next question was, tell me more about your toe injury during the trek because it happened very early on.
Yes. That was the first day.
Yeah, I was like, didn't it happen like in the first day or something?
It did.
Okay, so because you stubbed your toe, right? And then you kept stubbing it.
Oh my God, yes. So
were your boots not hard enough, or did you just hit it so hard?
Good question. So I did wear my hiking boots, but it didn't have a hard toe cap. It had a soft toe. So it happened on the descent, which was quite steep, much steeper than the ascent on the Pyrenees Mountain, and it was very rocky, lots of boulders, and it was in the latter part of the afternoon. I was tired, and when you're going downhill, you kind of start running because you're losing your balance, and you don't have complete control. Well, that's what happened. I just stubbed it on a boulder, and I was in pain right away. And when I got to my room that night, I took the boots off, and immediately I knew I was in trouble because it was barely hanging on. It was like the toenail was just barely hanging on.
Oh, you must have hit it so hard.
It was, and it continued to be. I continued to be in pain for the first 24, 25 days with that until finally
so
fell
most
off.
of the time?
Most of the time, yeah, most of the time. But that was just the first of several. That was just the first of several injuries.
I know you were fit. I know that, you had done a marathon. You felt really good about it. You were training. But you can't actually mimic what's going to happen. Like, you can't mimic the terrain. You can't mimic having a day pack on you for, 12 hours or however many hours a day. So of course your body is not going to necessarily respond all that well. So what else did you battle physically throughout the trek?
Yeah, again, the physical part, if it hadn't been for the injuries, It would have been a breeze. But you don't know what to expect on the Camino. You really don't. So there was one day when I had stopped, I think it was about halfway through the Camino. I stopped to do some interviews. As I had mentioned, my thought in going to Santiago was also to do a documentary. And so in doing so, I wanted to interview people, find out, their reason for, leaving the comforts of their home to go on the Camino. And so there was an area that I stopped, and there were several people there, and I asked all of them if they wouldn't mind, talking to me about their Camino experiences. So I did that, and it was a cool morning. Once I started walking again, my calf muscle had tightened up. And so at kilometer 13, I pulled my calf muscle to the point where I couldn't walk at that point. Thankfully, I had brought a muscle roller with me that day, and I started using it. And there were people along the way that stopped and helped with some medications that they get passed on to me. But the last 13 kilometers were extremely, extremely painful. Going through an area called La Meseta, which is if you can imagine the flat plains of Saskatchewan, that this would be similar to the flat plains of Saskatchewan. So very little shade. The towns are further apart. And it seems like because it's flat, it seems like you're not getting anywhere. It seems like you're just crawling. The problem was I probably dehydrated without really noticing it. It's so important to make sure that you do drink enough water, hydrate, have a ball cap on. And I ran out of water in between towns. And by the time I got to a city called Leon, I had a tough time. I basically passed out of my room that afternoon. And it took me about 2 days to get back to being myself after that.
I bet you've never forgot your water bottle, or maybe ever since, or you
oh my God,
maybe
no.
overpack water at this point.
No, I always did carry water, but again, as I mentioned, because you're on this terrain, and it wasn't flat. It wasn't hilly or anything like that. It was flat.
When you're exposed to the sun like that and the elements like that, yeah, no, it's tough.
It is for sure. The other injury, I started feeling my left knee started feeling wonky with about 2 weeks to go. I'd had some meniscus problems in the past. You know what? Carried through. I was determined to get past the injuries, and it did it.
Maybe that was part of it. I feel like that's almost part of the journey. When you hurt yourself somehow, you're like, this is just making me tougher. This is making me tougher. I may be in pain right now, but I think this is part of the experience.
Well, you're absolutely right. And some of the things that you learn about yourself is that I was in shape to walk it, but it really challenges yourself to see how tough you are, how determined you are. And those are things that I'll talk about, a little bit later on, the lessons that I learned along the way. But the other thing is I felt that maybe there was a purpose to my injuries. Maybe there was a purpose to my injuries, and that is to maybe slow down, take the blinders off. The blinders like the racehorses have. Take the blinders off, look around, and appreciate the world that is around us, that surround us. And in other words, slow down and smell the roses. And maybe that's what I was not doing. So maybe my injuries, as much as I hated the pain, were there for a reason. Yeah.
Slow you down. Can you tell me about the passport along the way? There is this on the Camino. There's like this. Is it called the Pilgrim Passport? Exactly.
Okay,
So tell me more about it. It sounds really, really cool.
So when you first start off in the town of Saint-Jean-Pied-de-Port, the Pilgrim office, you go in and you register, and they give you 2 passports. What happens is with the passports, it's just like a regular passports. If you're visiting Italy or Greece, you got to get it stamped and so forth. Well, you have to have a minimum of 2 stamps per town or every time you travel somewhere. By the time I reached, I can't remember, I think it was like 3/4 of the way, I needed a third passport because I loved collecting these stamps.
Oh,
And
fun.
they're all
What a
different.
cool keepsake, right?
It is. It truly is. And you know what? I still have them today, and it's amazing. I know for cyclists, it's a little bit different because people also can cycle the Camino. I believe for cyclists, they need an extra stamp per day when they're traveling.
That's really interesting. Do people use like gravel bikes or like mountain bikes, or what would someone use like cycling wise?
Yeah, mountain bikes is what I saw people on.
A lot of mountain bikes, yeah.
Yeah. As a walker, I think that's how the Camino was meant to be, is to be walked. But, hey, it's okay. There was one fellow I saw who was actually riding a horse, which is what they used to do at times in the old days. So everything's cool. Everything's cool.
What I love so much about trekking and hiking is that you have such great connections with people that you're hiking with or meeting.
Absolutely.
Because I don't know what the exact story is or the science behind it, but you tend to open up more to people when you're standing next to them versus like face to face.
You're absolutely 100% right. And I first started learning about this when I started running, because obviously if you're running a 5K or 10K or whatever distance you're going, you're running with someone sometimes, and you get to know them and they get to know you. But on the Camino, people tend to open up to you like they probably never opened up to anybody else before, because you know what? You're a stranger, and they don't mind telling you some of their...
There's no consequences. There's
no consequences. There's total freedom. But the stories that people that I came across are truly heartfelt and inspiring. I'll just tell you one quick story. Now, there was a couple in their mid-60s, man and wife, who were blind. The gentleman was totally blind, and his wife was about 60% blind. Now, I personally didn't meet him, but I met other people who had, and they told me about this couple that they met along the way. How they made it, how they got along the way is incredible. But that's the beauty of the community. You have people helping people. And the one lady that I met from South Africa, who actually met them in, trying to remember, one of the early stages that where we started our walk. She helped them across the road, and she remembered them. And when I eventually met up with her, her name is Rose from South Africa. We met near the Cruz de Ferro, the Iron Cross. She was telling me about this couple, and I kind of shook my head. And then later on, I met a bunch of students, American students, college students, who told me the same thing. They ran into this particular elderly couple. So it's unbelievable. It's unbelievable the people that are there, how inspiring some of these individuals are.
Whether it's the people that you maybe walk through with every day, or maybe it was someone that you met in town, who made the biggest impression on you and why?
When I first started my Camino in Saint Jean, I met 4 individuals. The first one was a young woman from the island of Sardinia in Italy, Alessandra. I met Leon Hitcha from the Netherlands, Paolo from Brazil, and Alessandro, a soldier from Italy, from Rome. I spent probably more time with these 4 individuals than I did with anyone else. We were probably together for about the first 3 weeks. Then Paolo had to go ahead because he had commitments in Brazil. Alessandro fell back because of injuries. But they were, I would say, the ones that had left the most impressions in me, because they were the closest individuals to myself, because I got to know them so well, having spent so much time with them. We shared many stories. I was the senior guy in the group, and they were like, Alessandra was like a daughter. She started calling me Zio.
Didn't she call you Zia? Zio, yeah.
Zio, which means uncle, Yeah, so she really looked up to me. I kind of took her under my wing, and the other fellas, they ranged in age from 30 to 45, I believe. And we got along so well. They accepted me as an equal, not as an old guy who was walking with them. And so the stories I shared with them, they shared with me. I believe that they probably made the most impression on me, and I made the most impression on them throughout the way. We ended up actually meeting Leon. I ended up meeting Leon and Alessandra in Santiago separately. We didn't get there together, but we ended up meeting there afterwards.
I love how it's almost like they're calling you Zio, and it's almost like it's family, right?
It is. And that's why we call ourselves the Camino family. That's what we call ourselves, yeah.
Let's Take This Outside with Marianne Iveson. Let's Take This Outside now has a newsletter. Keep up to date with outdoor news, events, and great discount codes and deals from our partners. Sign up today at letstakethisoutside.ca.
You've described the Camino as life-changing. Any trek that I've been on, whether it was Kilimanjaro, Everest Base Camp, and I met you actually through our mutual friend Patrick, who I did both of those treks with.
Yes.
When you come back from those kind of experiences, and Camino definitely it's even longer than what we did, it shifts your perspective kind of on life and how you live life and your priorities. So what shifted for you when you got back?
Well, that's an excellent question. And there's so many things that happened to me along the way. I look at life differently. I was always involved in sales, which means, high pressure, rush, be on time and this and that. So the one thing it taught me was to sort of, as I mentioned earlier, to slow down and smell the roses, look at life. Aside from that, there are things that I'll share with you, which some may seem a little on the personal side, but I'm okay with that.
That's what a podcast is for.
Humility was one of the first things I learned along the way, and I learned that on a bus trip when I first started from Marseille, which is in the book. It's actually quite hilarious, but I won't go into it too much.
Give us a quick synopsis of what happened on this bus trip.
Oh my God. Okay. So I mentioned the big brown luggage that I was carrying with me. So at the airport, there was supposed to be a shuttle bus to take me to the train station, where I would take 2 trains or 3 trains, I believe, to get to Santiago. To Saint-Jean-Pied-de-Port in France, okay?
Something like this has happened to all of us who travel, by the way.
Yeah.
So that's why I wanted you to tell us more about it. Go ahead, sir. Yeah, so you're supposed to take all these trains to get to the start. Yeah, that sounds like a lot.
So I'm on a city bus, okay? At the airport, I'm on a city bus now, not a shuttle bus. So I'm hauling my big brown luggage up 3 stairs of steps. There's people in front of me. There's people behind me. And the bus, the driver looks at me, and I give her, I want her to hand her €5. And she kind of looks at me like really strangely, like I'm an alien or something. And, she says, Monsieur, où est votre billet? Where's your ticket? And I just kind of shook my head. I mean, I get by in French a little bit. Anyway, she says, you need change. So she says, you must ask the people on the bus for change. Oh. So, Marianne, can you imagine? Here I am, a stranger.
Your French is rusty. My French
is rusty. So I'm kind of looking around. And
you're begging for change.
Pretty well. But thankfully, this gentleman who was sitting at the front of the bus kind of looked at me with a whole lot of pity. He puts his hand in his jacket pocket, pulls out a bunch of change, and just basically hands me all that change that he's got. So I go back to the bus driver. I kind of say, here I am with my change. She says, you need €2. Okay, so I put €2 in, and I'm starting to walk back to the gentleman to give him his change back. And the lady says, arrête. Yeah, so I have to kind of get my ticket and put it in the little deposit box. Mm-hmm. Finally, I do that. And I managed now to get back to the gentleman that gave me all the change, and I hand him his change back, and I thank him for his change, and I also thanked him for his pity. But that wasn't the end of it, because then there was this brown luggage. I was standing up on the bus, by the way. So brown luggage I was holding with one leg against the side of the bus. Well, every time we actually turned the corner, the big brown luggage would sort of run away from me on its own. And so all these people that a little while ago were kind of avoiding looking at me. We're all starting to, chuckle and giggle. So that was one of the funniest moments on the on my trip. Right before I actually started.
You knew exactly what they were thinking. They were like, stupid tourist.
Stupid
tourist. Yeah.
Stupid pilgrim. Yeah.
We've all embarrassed ourselves in another country.
But you know what? That was, for sure. But that was one of two really funny moments I had. I don't know if you have time for a second one or not.
Yeah, of course.
I had just gone into town with my friend Paolo, and we just avoided a massive downpour. So I just got in.
So you were on the trail at this point?
We were on the trail.
Yeah.
We just avoided a massive downpour. He went to his place. I went to my place. I checked in, went to my room, and then I thought, well, I better go downstairs and find out what time supper's going to be at. So I'm downstairs now at the reception desk, and I see four fellas talking or trying to talk to the receptionist. The problem is she's Spanish, doesn't speak a word of English. They're Irish. They don't speak a word of Spanish. And so because I'm Italian and I get by in Spanish somewhat, I started helping them out. So what these fellas wanted to do, they had reservations for 16 of them, okay? But only 4 of them were there. So what they wanted to do is they each wanted their own room and then leave the other 12 fellas to take care of themselves. So this is what I wanted. This is what they wanted me to explain to the receptionist.
Oh no!
Yeah, it was comical. But then,
and you're like, I shouldn't have signed up for this. I should not.
No, but you know what? The funny part of it was the receptionist kind of smiled and gave this kind of look that she knew what they were up to.
Yeah,
so, but later that night, they had a restaurant in this place in this small hotel, and I ended up going downstairs, and who was there? But these Irish fellas, along with the other guys that made it, their other friends that made it there later on, and they invite me over. The 4 fellas invite me over to their table, and thanks again for helping us out. Don't worry about your beer. We're going to take care of that for you for the rest of the night. So anyway, what ensued was a hilarious night of mispronunciations and drinking too much on their part. And the whole story's in the book. And honestly, it is one of the funniest stories I've ever had in my life. It's just hilarious.
Leave it up to Irishmen to make you laugh too hard.
They were awesome. They were great.
I do want to ask you a more serious question.
Sure.
How did spirituality play a role in your experience, whether religious or more personal?
So I am a religious person.
Are you Catholic?
I am Catholic, yes. Yes, and that was a big reason for me wanting to go there because, I guess a person can do walks anywhere in the world. I can, we have some beautiful trails here in Canada, the US, anywhere. But walking the Camino, a pilgrimage which was started by St. James and walked by hundreds of thousands or maybe millions of pilgrims over the years, was a special place for me to do my walk. And I wanted to do so because I wanted to thank God and honor God for his many blessings that myself and my family have had over the years. I thank him for our health, for what we have, for all of his blessings, all of his gifts, and all of his mercies. And this is something that is special to me, and that was one of the reasons, the main reason why I wanted to go. The other reason, of course, was, my mom and dad came to Canada in 1959, and with basically just what they had on their backs and in a small suitcase, and not much. And I wanted to honor them by walking the Camino for everything they did for myself and for my siblings.
You wrote a poem called The Path. It's in your book. Can you, first of all, tell me more about your book, and then I want you to read the poem and kind of what it represents to you.
The book itself is a journal. I started writing in this journal from the very time I left Ottawa. I started writing about my feelings, how I felt, and I continued to do so each and every day while I was on the Camino. The experiences, my own personal experiences, my thoughts, my injuries, but I also wanted to record and make sure that I got the story out of the individuals that I met, their story, why they were on the Camino. And as I mentioned earlier, some were there for religious or spiritual reasons. Some were there just for a very long walk. Whatever the reasons was, I wanted to share that, share their stories with people. And it was very important for me to be able to share that with people that have not been on the Camino. When I first started looking at walking the Camino, I actually went to several bookstores, and although they had books on the Camino, they didn't quite have what I was looking for. In other words, I wanted to have stories about the Camino from individuals. I wanted their stories. What was it like for them to be on the Camino? I didn't see anything like that. And so that was one of the things that I brought back, took with me, I should say, is that I wanted to have, these particular stories of people and share them with people around the world. And so that's when I decided that through my documentary, through my journal, I wanted to put everything together and share that with the world.
Could you read the poem? And
Sure.
It's so beautiful. What does it represent? What does that mean?
Thank you. The poem is about a man who is seeking redemption for burdens that he has carried for a very long time. The poem is called The Path. And if I can read that, I will do so. The path. He walks the path to find enlightenment, to search for truth, to cleanse his soul. 33 days he walks in pain along the path to find his way. Over hills and mountains and valleys below, past streams and rivers and fields of gold. Much beauty surrounds him. His path is clear until a choice to make instills much fear. Fog surrounds him, he is unsure, misses the sign to the path that is pure. He must go back to find his way. From the righteous path he must not stray. A distant voice he thinks he hears. Follow me, come this way, walk this path, do not stray. He follows the voice. Into the fog he must go, trust and faith he does show. The fog has lifted, the sun now shines, the path is clear, he is in the light. Endless miles he does endure, pain and suffering until there is no more. His backpack is heavy with burdens he's carried, guilt and sorrow that must be buried. Cruz de Ferro is now in sight. Here he would lighten his load and leave his burdens behind. On bended knee his soul does bleed, as his unfulfilled heart cries out its need. Lamentations as he mourns, the loss of pain is the pain he scorns. His joyful heart touches his anguished soul, surrendering finally from its rooted woes. His path has now ended. He's found his way. From the righteous path, he did not stray.
What a beautiful analogy for life.
Absolutely.
I'm assuming that's what that's about.
Absolutely.
And not just you physically walking.
My pleasure.
That's beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing that. It sounds like that sounded like that came straight out of your heart and your soul and put it onto paper. So
it did. It surely did.
Looking back on everything, immigration, marathons, writing, the Camino, what do you think all of these experiences have taught you about finding peace or purpose later in life?
If I can mention this, I break life down into 4 stages. The first stage is we're learning, so we make mistakes, which is fine, which is okay to make mistakes, because through mistakes, then we can gain experience, okay? Through experience, we gain knowledge. And finally, at the stage I'm at, I can say that I have grown a little bit wiser. And later in life, you do gain wisdom. And the wisdom I've gained is from meeting so many people on the Camino. My primary goal when I set out was to reach Santiago de Compostela. And I did. But I found along the way that meeting people, talking people, learning from them was as important or even more important than reaching my final destination, you know. I mentioned to this one young Spanish fellow, his English was not bad, not great, but we understood each other. I said to him, you know, at any moment in time, one can be a student and a teacher at the same time, because we learn from each other. We learn from each other. And that's the beauty of what I did walking the Camino, is that I met so many people that showed me the things that I really lacked. And I can go over some of those things, some of the lessons I learned along the way, if you wish, in the next moment or so.
Absolutely. I would love to hear those.
Many lessons to be learned, but here are my top 12, okay? I mentioned humility from the first day in Bordeaux on the bus, having to ask for change, be humble and kind.
Very much so.
Kindness, giving, and sharing. I experienced this many times, from the bus trip in Bordeaux, the fellow who gave me change, to the many pilgrims who stopped to see if I was okay when I was injured. Patience. You may not always get what you want exactly when you want it. Slow down, smell the roses. I mentioned this a little while ago. Remove your blinders. Blinders are what racehorses wear to keep them focused on what is directly ahead of them, so that they are not distracted. But perhaps as humans, we should remove the blinders so to see the complete picture and see what's around us, appreciate the totality of the beautiful world that is surrounding us. Forgiveness. Lighten your backpack. Get rid of the burdens you have been carrying. Forgive those that you have not forgiven, and in turn ask for forgiveness from them as well. Empathy. Understanding what other people are going through. Put yourself in their shoes. Don't judge based upon appearance. And I'll tell you a quick story, if I may, about a fellow that I met on the Camino.
Sure.
I was sitting outside this restaurant with my friends Leon and Paolo. We were having a cold beer, which we enjoyed every single day at the end of the Camino. Well deserved. And about 2 tables over, I saw this one fellow sitting down. He was kind of scruffy looking, beard, dressed in black, tattoos. And I'm ashamed to say this, but normally I probably would not have associated myself with someone like that. And I know that's wrong. I realize that's wrong. But anyways, he waves at me and I wave at him back. And you know, he was sitting by himself. So I waved him over to come sit down with me and my friends. And we start talking, and I find out that this story is a beautiful story that is in my book. Very quickly, he's a fellow that had some challenges in life with some addictions. He told me about them. The fellow was from Sicily, so the Sicilian dialect and the Calabrese dialect from Calabria are quite similar. So we spoke in our native languages. But this fellow, I guess my point is, you know, I had prejudged him before I even knew him, and I should not have done that. And he was a beautiful guy. He was a wonderful guy. And I'm glad I met him, and I'm glad I got to know him, because that was a huge lesson for me to learn. Perseverance.
I love that.
No matter what age or gender or whatever you are, no matter how bad you think you may have it, you always have more left in the tank. And never give up. And you know, again, I mentioned the blind couple walking the Camino. Well, what a story that is, right? Focus on the journey rather than the destination. The journey is what you will cherish. The challenges, the pain, the suffering, the laughs, the tears you share with others is the glue that will bond us all together. Find strength not just in community, but also in solitude, which is something I learned. Because although I was with my Camino family about the first 3 weeks, the last 3 weeks or so, I was on my own. Not that I was alone, but I was on my own, and I met people along the way. But I really cherished the time that I did have on my own, because I learned to trust in myself. Many times going through bad weather, several times through painful injuries, as I mentioned to you. So, have faith. Faith will get you through some really, really tough times. And lastly, and this is something that a fellow on the Camino mentioned to me, always have love and laughter in your life. It will keep you sane in today's world.
Absolutely. Yes, you have to. You have to. Your book is called Searching for Serenity, Finding My Way on the Camino de Santiago. I'm going to put a link of where people can buy it in the show notes. You are going back. What's next? My question was, what's next for you? But I know you are going back.
Yes, absolutely. So I'm going to start my rehabbing tomorrow, actually.
Because you just had knee surgery, yeah.
Yes, bilateral partial knee surgery. I'm going to start my physio, and then after that, I'm start getting in shape. So I'm looking at the spring of 2027 to return to the Camino and actually walk the same Camino Frances that I did 3 years ago.
With no brown luggage.
No brown luggage.
No brown luggage. If I could title this, it's going to be called No Brown Luggage.
Absolutely. That's my next book. No brown luggage.
No brown luggage. Angelo, thank you so much for sharing your story. It's been absolutely lovely chatting with you today.
Thank you, Marianne, and have a wonderful day. And thanks again for having me on your show.
Thanks for listening. For more Let's Take This Outside, go to letstakethisoutside.ca.
Produced and distributed by the Sound Off Media Company.